There are many things that people love about classic horror. The over-the-top acting, the creative kills, the gratuitous nudity, and depending on when you were born, the cheesy special effects or groundbreaking for its time special effects. But one thing that many people don't like about classic horror is the lack of female representation, especially behind the camera. There have been some notable women in the genre, like Valerie Harper, who was the first woman to ever win an Oscar for Best Actress for her role in the 1968 version of Rosemary's Baby. And of course, there's the legendary Jamie Lee Curtis, the scream queen of the 70s and 80s slash era. However, those two are just the tip of the iceberg because even though it may come as a surprise to some, a lot of the most well-known and important films in the history of horror were actually written by women. Before we get started, I would like to say thank you to all of our patrons. If you enjoy these videos, please consider supporting us. With that said, let's check out this list of forgotten female authors of classic Gothic horror. Mary Shelley, arguably one of the most important figures in both the history of horror and the history of literature in general. Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley's Frankenstein, published in 1818, tells the story of a scientist who creates a monster from different body parts. When the creature is rejected by society for looking grotesque, he goes on a killing spree targeting the scientist and his family. Although it was written over 200 years ago, Frankenstein is still widely studied in schools today and has had numerous film adaptations. In fact, Frankenstein was the first science fiction book ever written, which is why Mary Shelley is often referred to as the mother of science fiction. Sadly, Mary Shelley died believing that she was a failure as a writer. She suffered from depression throughout her entire life and spent much of her time comparing herself to her deceased husband, Percy Bysshe Shelley, who was a very famous romantic poet at the time. To put things into perspective, if you met Mary Shelley at a party, someone might introduce you by saying, this is the person who wrote Frankenstein. You've heard of Frankenstein, right? To which you would reply, yeah, of course. And then they'd introduce Mary Shelley by saying, this is Mary Shelley. She's the wife of the great romantic poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, to which you would respond, who? Helen Mathers. Helen Mathers wrote over 30 books in her lifetime, with many of them being ghost stories set in colonial America. One of her most famous stories is The Shadow in the Corner, published in 1933. This chilling tale follows a young girl named Laura, whose governess tells her that there is a mysterious presence in the house that seems to be attached to Lavra. As the story progresses, the ghost tries to influence Laura and push her closer to insanity. While most of the attention in the literary world has gone to her contemporary, Shirley Jackson, Helen Mathers, was actually the better writer of the two. After all, it was Helen Mathers who inspired the creation of Hill House, the haunted mansion from Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, Constance Fenimore Woolson. Constance Fenimore Woolson wrote many short stories about the supernatural and was quite successful during her lifetime. However, she's been largely forgotten over the years. Her most famous story is The Ghost Singer, published in 1894. The story revolves around a traveling musician named John Graham, who one day while performing is interrupted by a ghostly voice singing along with him. Over time, the ghost becomes more and more prominent until John is forced to confront the spirit and uncover its tragic backstory. Although she was popular during her lifetime, Constance Fenimore Woolson's work began to be overshadowed by newer authors after her death. Many believe that this was due to the fact that she didn't publish any new material in the last decade of her life. Others believe that it was because she was a recluse in her later years and stopped socializing with other writers. Still, others think that it was because she was a lesbian living in a time when homosexuality was not accepted. Whatever the reason, she's largely been forgotten over the years. Al Sprague de Camp, Al Sprague. DeCamp was a prolific writer who wrote in multiple genres. However, she's best known for her work in horror and fantasy. One of her most famous stories is The Green Magician, published in 1944. This fantasy novel tells the story of a man who accidentally releases an evil green magician from his prison. The Green Magician sets about conquering the world with his powerful magic, but he's eventually defeated by a young hero. Despite being a very prolific author, writing 66 novels and 243 short stories, DeCamp's work has largely been ignored by literary scholars. Some believe that this is because she was a woman writing in a male-dominated field. Others think that it was because she was not willing to conform to the expectations of the time and write what was expected of her. Still, others think that it was simply because her work was too similar to that of her contemporaries and did not stand out. Elizabeth Gouge. Elizabeth Gouge was a very successful author during her lifetime and was even awarded the Order of the British Empire for her contributions to literature. However, her work has since gone out of style and she's largely been forgotten. One of her most famous novels is The Little White Horse, published in 1946. This children's novel tells the story of a young girl who discovers that she is the descendant of an ancient line of protectors of a magical horse. When the horse is stolen by an evil witch, the girl must embark on a quest to rescue it. Despite her success during her lifetime, Gouge's work has since fallen out of favor with critics and readers alike. Some believe that this is because her writing is too simplistic. Others think that it's because her books are too moralistic. Still, others think that it's simply because she's not marketed to the right audience. Violet Paget. Violet Paget was a very successful author during her lifetime and was even awarded the Order of the British Empire for her contributions to literature. However, her work has since gone out of style and she's largely been forgotten. One of her most famous novels is The Red House, published in 1924. This Gothic novel tells the story of a young woman who inherits a house from her aunt. She soon discovers that the house is haunted by the ghost of a young girl who died there many years ago. As the story progresses, the ghost begins to take over the young woman's life, and she must find a way to break free before it is too late. Despite her success during her lifetime, Paget's work has since fallen out of favor with critics and readers alike. Some believe that this is because her writing is too flowery and descriptive. Others think that it's because her characters are too one-dimensional. Still, others think that it's simply because she's not marketed to the right audience. Dorothy Bussey. Dorothy Bussey was a very successful author during her lifetime and was even awarded the Order of the British Empire for her contributions to literature. However, her work has since gone out of style and she's largely been forgotten. One of her most famous novels is The Man in the Queue, published in 1933. This thriller tells the story of a man who witnesses a murder and must now hide from the killer. As the story progresses, he finds himself in a race against time as the killer closes in on him. Despite her success during her lifetime, Beissel's work has since fallen out of favor with critics and readers alike. Some believe that this is because her writing is too fast-paced and action-packed. Others think that it's because her plots are too convoluted. Still, others think that it's simply because she's not marketed to the right audience. We hope that you enjoyed this list of forgotten female authors of classic Gothic horror. If so, please leave us a like and comment down below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Until next time, keep watching and learning.